Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Circular Chat curated by ICCE, which is a weekly program that invites experts and practitioners from industries, government, multilateral, and bilateral organizations and nonprofits to discuss how they are embedding circular practices and sustainability in their business models. The fifth season is running successfully, which emphasizes on circularity in electrical and electronic equipment sector. We have collaborated with NSR Cell, the incubation center for startups at IIM Bangalore, for this season. The chat would help consult the industry experts who will help prepare an action plan for implementing circular economy principles in the e-waste sector and expedite the focus on circular economy to ensure the transition from a linear to a circular economy in the triple E sector in India. The key focus includes the integration of principles in the design, manufacturing, consumption, and end-of-life management of electronics and electrical equipment. We have hosted 3 episodes of this season so far and have covered topics like life cycle of electrical and electronic equipment, collection of waste from electrical and electronics equipment. And in the third episode, we had Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee. He's the Senior Director and Head of Electronics Materials and Component Development Division, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, wherein he shared his views on India's vision to bring circularity in WEEE sector. Today, the topic of our discussion will be closed-loop business models. And we are delighted to have Ms Deepali Sinha Khetriwal as a speaker, co-founder of EcoWork, a social enterprise working with the informal waste sector to support their formalization and mainstreaming. Thanks, Deepali. Thanks for joining us.
Surabhi, thank you so much, and very good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are listening to this chat. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you. Let me introduce you to her. Deepali is a circular economy expert with over 19 years of experience in the sector, especially in the domain of EPR-related waste streams such as e-waste, batteries, plastics, solar waste, and ELVs. An international expert, she has worked on projects in Asia, Africa, Europe, and South America for multilateral agencies, UN organizations, governments, private sector companies, SMEs, and multinationals, and for nonprofits as well. Her engagements have encompassed policy and regulation, technical and financial assessments and mapping, standards development, stakeholder engagements, and capacity building support and advisory. She has a PhD in international management from the University of St. Gallen, Switzerland, where her thesis was on modeling e-waste flows linked to consumer behavior. So this is Deepali for you. And Deepali, thanks a lot for your time today.
It's my pleasure and honor to be here, Surabhi. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful, Deepali. Now we have a set of questions for you ready. So we would want to know a lot from you, and you have to share your knowledge here and experiences with us. So my first question to you, Deepali, is what are the key challenges faced by the electronics sector in implementing closed loop business models for sustainability?
That's a great question, Surabhi, because I think we can spend the next 30 minutes on the challenges because there's a long list of them. I'm sure, all the previous speakers might have also touched a bit upon these, when it comes to collection, when it comes to design, when it comes to, upstream, downstream aspects. But, if I had to just look at, the key challenge, like, the one thing that really is like the linchpin to really get that closed loop circular economy business model working, it's the regulatory framework, and especially regulatory certainty or uncertainty, right? Like the challenge is that there is a lot of regulatory uncertainty currently, especially in the context of the Indian ecosystem, where you have a lot of good intentions. So I think the positive element is that there is a lot of regulatory intention. There is the drive to become better regulated, more transparent, and use more technology in bringing that transparency. But I think there is still a lot, in terms of how is it from a compliance perspective, whether you're a recycler, whether you're a producer, whether, you're anywhere in that ecosystem, that uncertainty is really, it creates a logjam. And that really is not helping that movement and, that circularity. So for me, I think, having a clear regulatory framework which has, a well-defined definition, really strongly defined roles and responsibility, who has, the ownership of what, who should be held responsible, who should be held accountable for which part, and what is, their role to play. And then, of course, backed with investments, backed with enforcement, all that falls into place then. As long as you have this clarity, and, there is no ambiguity, there are no gray zones, who is responsible and what should be done. And I think that's where it starts, with that, regulatory clarity. So for me, the main opportunity would be to bring this clarity, to turn it into a positive frame, instead of the challenge. I think the opportunity is to bring this clarity, to really push for that implementation.
That's right, Deepali. So this ambiguity has to, subside, and the clear picture has to come in, and the government. So what do you think that would push the right kind of policies? What kind of push, from what people this push can come? Because we are a think tank also, we are also, doing in this field, that we are trying to push policies and some reforms to come. What else do you think can really make this push?
Yeah, I think, the regulatory framework, and the policy direction, I think they both have to go in tandem, right? I think the policy direction is more or less there to some extent, where, there is the talk of the circular economy, there is the talk of having ease of doing business, all of those kinds of, broad policy directions. Where I think really the push is needed is, on the implementation of those policies, when it comes to, having clarity, whether it's in guidelines, whether it's in, the regulatory text itself, and that, it matches up. It shouldn't be contradictory, it should be, easy to implement, easy to understand, without, having to rely on different interpretations, which can often be the case, right? So yeah, so I think, that's an area where I think really that push is needed.
Definitely. And besides this, implementation part and the challenges that we have, but we do have lots of innovations coming which are solving these problems of e-waste or whatever waste management that we are having. So what do you think innovation plays a role in driving closed loop approaches within this sector actually? And if you have some examples, then please, we would want to know.
Definitely. I think, this space is so, in a way, new in the sense of like a formal business. And, a lot of people have, been kind of innovating in this space. And it's a whole range, right? I think there's innovation on the product side, where you have more sustainable, more circular products coming. You have innovation on the material side, where you have a lot more materials that are circular by design, coming into the market. And you also have a lot of innovation in business models. So how are products sold, whether they are sold or not, even actually, whether you have like only a leasing or an ownership, instead of an ownership, just a pay-per-use model and things. And I think, eco work is also, part of those kind of innovations, right? I mean, we are creating a business model where you have the ability to do that recycling in a way that it is safe and efficient, and also giving you better social impact, better health conditions, etc., without the cost of it, right? So it is making it more accessible, it's more inclusive. So those kinds of business models are there, those kinds of innovations right across services and products are making those possible. So I think I look at it as a very positive sign, and hope, in that sense.
Definitely. And Dipali, I'm really excited to know what exactly your business model is. I've been knowing you since quite a while now, and just wanted to know how you are actually doing this. What is the business model that you are working upon?
Sure. I'll try to be very quick and brief. Otherwise, I can talk about it a long time. So, very, very simply, this is a co-working space, and what we have
Mm.
is a space with all the tools, all the infrastructure that you would need to dismantle electronics in a way that is in a safe and in a proper, efficient way. With the right ventilation, with the right tools, and be able to benefit from an aggregation or kind of a model where you can uh, get more value for that material. So really bringing the ecosystem together in a space that benefits everybody through a shared infrastructure. And it's
I
it's an enterprise, so it's a social enterprise, but it's still an enterprise. So we are still a business that needs to pay bills, that needs to earn a living in that sense. And so even though we have a cost associated, so it's a pay per use or pay as you go model, it's very affordable. So as a dismantler, you don't need to invest in a full large scale facility right from the start. You can start small and then grow. That's the idea behind it, actually.
I see. That's wonderful. Good to know that, Dipali. And in what ways? See, nowadays, digitalization has touched every sector, and it has been a big. It has shown a big impact on electronics industry also. So, to promote, what is it doing to promote closed loop business model? Do you think there is an impact in that sense also?
Absolutely, undoubtedly. And, a couple of years ago, in fact, in 2021, so exactly about 2 years ago,
Hmm.
I worked on a paper together with ITU, that's the International Telecommunications Union. And
Okay.
this paper was exactly about how can digital technologies promote or, help bring circularity in the electronic waste space. And, you can do this, you already mentioned about the life cycle. So right across
Hmm.
that product life cycle, you can have many technologies really helping uh, bring that circularity element. So right, whether it's in digital twin technologies, which help with preventive maintenance, so you can ensure your products have a better, longer life. You can have this at the consumer level through apps that help for collection, for awareness, etc. You can have this at the recycling level, where you can have these AI and digital sorting technologies improve the kind of fractions, the quality of the fractions, then that can be recycled, etc. So there are many kind of elements. I think we did a whole mapping of it, and there were really a lot of interventions that technology can bring in, whether it's transparency again, right? Like in reporting, you have like the whole chain of custody. You can have that traceability of where that material was, how did it move, when it got recycled. So, definitely a lot of space for innovation, a lot of space for growth in, using technology to help technology be recycled better.
Right, right. So you have already answered my next question, actually.
Okay.
My next question was actually about new technologies and interventions. And in case if you have seen something which is really catching up, some technology or some new intervention that has actually shown some promise in enhancing this. So please, share something like that if you would really have seen some, impactful interventions.
I mean, and not like any one that really springs to my mind,
Hmm.
but there is
Hmm.
really definitely. I'm happy to share the link to this paper from the ITU.
Hmm.
It really
Hmm.
is about digital solutions for a circular economy. In the electronics value chain. And it looks at using artificial intelligence. You can use blockchain. There's of course this whole big data analytics and cloud computing, internet of things in terms of like sensors talking about the
Hmm.
state of the product. There are all sorts of robotics which are coming into the recycling plants. So I mean, I think there's a whole range, whether it's about the transparency, whether it's about optimization, whether it's about training and capacity building as well, right? Like through a lot of apps. There's digital gamification happening to create that excitement and awareness on what to do with old, equipment, old appliances. So yeah, I mean, there's I think marketplaces which are popping up, which are already there to create that kind of platform for material exchange, for refurbished devices, etc. So I think this area is really a very, very wide and growing one. So there's not one that comes to mind, but all of these are very good examples, and all of these have a lot of opportunity.
Yes, there definitely lies opportunity in waste. It's not waste anymore. It has become a new resource.
It's a way.
So,
Yes.
and yeah. So now, Dipali, I would want to know if you have any insights on the environmental and economic benefits of closed loop business models in the electronics industry. There are definitely environmental and economic benefits. So what are these?
I mean, that's a great point. Survey, you definitely have a lot of environmental and economic benefits, and to that, I want to also add social benefits, right? Because it's really something that benefits society as a whole. It benefits people. It of course has benefits on the environmental dimension. Through reducing pollution, through improving air quality, water quality. You don't have as many effluents going into open waste, open streams, or if you have a mining impact, so you can reduce the impacts from primary raw materials if you're using secondary raw materials. So definitely there's a lot of environmental impact. On the economic impact, again, you're adding value, you're creating raw materials in a country through the resources that are already existing. So it's like an urban mine, right? So all our phones and TVs and desktops and computers, you can really use those resources which have already been mined to bring them back into the economic cycle. So there is definitely that economic value add. And then the social side, which I mentioned, is also important because it's creating livelihoods, and you can do this in a way that it is done safely. It has all those kind of safeguards, etc. And yeah, so I think it definitely touches on all those three aspects, the environmental, economic, and social side.
Definitely. And Dipali, you have already, spoken about the challenges, and one of the biggest challenge that you have mentioned is the policies and frameworks. My next question comes to this only. So, how does the regulatory frameworks and policies influence the adoption of closed loop models in this sector, and what can be done to encourage their implementation?
It's absolutely fundamental, Survey. I think it really links back to what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, how does it impact? The regulatory framework really sets the basic rules of the game, right? So, you have to have that kind of level playing field, and everybody has to play by the same rules. You can't have one set of rules for one team and another set of rules for another team. Since we have the World Cup going on right now, I mean, you can't say that one team can have 50 overs and another team has only 10 overs or something like this, right?
Absolutely.
So you need to set the rules
Right.
of the game, and that's what the regulatory
Mm,
framework does. And that
mm,
really triggers that whole cycle, because then
mm,
investors are confident of investing. People have the ability to access financing, set up recycling plants, build those systems which are capital intensive, and they do take time to start to have those return on investment. And that's where it links back
mm,
to what I mentioned earlier in terms of that regulatory uncertainty, right? Because if you
mm,
don't have that certainty, is that current regulatory framework going to still stay the same in 1 year's time or 2 years time, or is it going to
mm,
completely change? And then will I get a return on my investment, or will I kind of have completely unviable business model in 2 years time?
mm,
Not having that certainty, not having that regulatory framework in place, uh,
mm,
just discourages investment in the sector. So once you have that regulatory framework, you get that investment, And then, you have that infrastructure that is built, whether it's for collection, whether it's for recycling, whether it's for, using any of those innovative technologies, that's when people find the interest and the need. There is a demand as well, right? So there is both the demand pull, because, in the context of e-waste, for example, you have producers requesting for those services, right? They need to be compliant. They need to have, take back. They need to have, uh, recycling. They need to have recycling at a certain standard. So without those kind of rules, you don't have the demand, and therefore the supply is also kind of missing. And the minute you have that framework, you already, there is a lot of interest in creating solutions, creating products, creating services to meet that demand. So I think that's where that regulatory framework really plays, or has a really outsized influence in uh, pushing for that circularity, to really bring in that closed loop model. And then, of course, it's
Sure.
down to individual producers, it's down to individual recyclers, and those are more operational elements. But really, unless you have that enabling environment with that framework in place, it's always a little bit more challenging, and it's not taking. I mean, that momentum is not there.
It has to be more comprehensive, the everything has to be explained well, so there is no ambiguity, as you were mentioning earlier as well. So whatever frameworks are coming, whatever policies are coming, they have to be very clear about what exactly are they meaning.
Exactly,
So
very much. Absolutely.
right,
And
right, right.
also looking at it, in the broader context. So it's, it can't be just like, okay, this is only for relevant only for electronics. Electronics also has a lot of plastics, right? So how do you align with plastic waste rules? Electronics also has batteries, so how do you align with batteries, waste rules? So you need to look at it, at a very macro view, as well as the micro. You cannot put a policy, you cannot put a regulation without knowing what the local context is, right? So you can't say, oh, I want 80% recycling and not have a single recycler in the country, right? So things like that. So
Absolutely.
you need to make that match, and build up slowly, and looking at what the big picture is, but also what the small picture is.
So there's a big challenge for the policy makers ahead, I think, regarding all these things.
I think, I mean, policymakers are really used to that, right? I think
Hmm.
that's what they thrive on also, and that's what their role is,
Hmm.
right? I mean, to look at these
Hmm.
challenges and find the solutions for society as well.
Right.
And I
Right.
think there is a lot of experience in this, luckily, around the world. And
Hmm.
I think also in
Hmm.
India, we have evolved a lot over the last 10,
Yes.
12 years since we've had the e-waste rules, for
Hmm.
example. A lot of it has undergone amendments. A lot of changes have taken place.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, given the learnings, and obviously, with the kind of intention to improve the system. So I think that kind of uh, churn, or that policy adaptation is happening. But I think it would be good to have that with a kind of regularity, or with a kind of certainty, and a set process, a set timeline, not this ambiguity that currently, normally in the kind of in a hurry, that to make those changes, you kind of lose out, a lot of those nuances maybe, that would help to implement that policy better, or help that in regulatory implementation
Hmm.
better. So yeah, so I think
Absolutely.
definitely that's
I yeah, yeah. I hope Indian government will definitely evolve and adapt to the newer situations which are coming up, and we'll definitely have something more stringent and more which is pushing for everyone and helping in whatever people are trying to do. That helps in people like you, those who are trying to do something very good, and new things are coming up. So, Dipali, that's very good that you have come with us and you have shared your knowledge with us today. And we had a great time. And you had touched upon many important points here that we had discussed. on electronics and electrical waste. And it was definitely an insightful session. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you, Surabhi. And yeah, it was really interesting for me. And, thank you for your questions. I think they were really covering a very, very wide range of topics. And, I hope it was interesting also for the viewers. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
look forward to,
Yeah.
listening in on the next chats. And, as it
Definitely,
continues.
definitely. Do listen, do watch our next chats also. I would also like to thank the audience present today. And I wish good luck to you, Dipali, for your new venture that you have just started. And we hope it sets an example for others also to follow and help reduce the burden of e-waste from the waste streams.
Thank you so much, Surabhi. It was a pleasure and all
Thank
the best to
you.
you. Thanks, then. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for
And
watching the
happy
video. We'll
Diwali
see
in
you next
advance.
week. Yes, happy Diwali. It's the Diwali weekend. Long weekend is
Yes.
coming now.
Take care then.
Everybody is in the celebration mood
Yes.
now. Yes. Thanks
Take
for
care.
watching the video. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next week on Wednesday at the same time with a new expert sharing his or her expertise. Let me know if you have any queries on surbi at icce.com. Keep following our social media handles for the upcoming events. Have a great evening. Thank you, Dipali. Thanks a lot. Yeah.